Since 1954, Terrebonne General has been a beacon of health and hope in our community. As we mark 7 decades of dedication to your well-being, Terrebonne General Health System remains committed to advancing healthcare, improving lives, and expanding our services to meet your evolving needs. In celebrating our past, we look forward to a future filled with promise and progress. Your health is our legacy. To discover more, visit tghealthsystem.com.
All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. Martin Falls here. We have the parish president of Lafourche Parish. He didn't come by way of computers and all that. He's in person. He likes to come to home every now and then and sit down in the chair right here. Good to see you, Archie. How are you?
Good to see you, Martin. Glad to be back with you.
All right. Yeah, a lot, you know. Man, I can't believe it. You're on the desk. We don't have an oil spill. We don't have a hurricane. Is everything okay?
Everything's good. knock on this wood you got, right?
Yeah, things are progressing. First of all, let's start off with all the damage from the hurricane. How's the building process going? Making good progress? We
are. Last sets of buildings, Mitch and I were talking last week, we finally do not have a building with a temporary roof on it, which is a good thing to get to. A lot of this has turned to the interior work. A lot of work happening. Galliano, our government complex, a new health unit down there is about 50% done. A lot of our rec facilities are almost complete, brand new metal pole lighting, LED lights. So when you light those things up, it looks like you're rocking in the sun sometimes, but it's good to have those facilities back up and running. Our Matthews government complex is under construction right now, doing the interior side and the parking lot outside. And then our courthouse and the courthouse annex, had some issues from Francine again, took on some water, just old windows, old buildings. So we've scattered some people around. Clerk Court was real good at moving around and being with us and working with us to shift some of her folks around. And then once we're done in the courthouse annex, probably in the middle of March, we'll turn our attention to the old courthouse and then move those judges around and get to work on the 300-year-old building. But overall, doing really well. Not a whole lot from Francine to talk about. A little bit of debris on the ground, but we got that up within about a 3 or 4 week period. So we're rocking and rolling. Not a whole lot to complain about, I guess.
You're pretty good now at logistics. You've been. I don't know what. You have a degree in logistics, whether you want one or not. I was going to say maybe you could help LSU with their coaching decisions and all that. But you've really been thrown into things that aren't the norm for a parish president. Although you got to deal with hurricanes, although you got to deal with an oil spill here and there, but not so many. Yeah. But how's this help you to manage the other things that you thought would be stressful, but at the end of the day, they turn out to be really not that stressful because you got all that under your belt? Yeah,
Martin, I say it all the time when people ask, when people say thank you or people talk about the good job we're doing, we have a really good team. And I couldn't do it without the 327 people that we get to work with every day, right? But yeah, we have been thrown kind of a few curveballs, right? Not, the most impactful storm, one of the first two that ever hit Louisiana, the oil spills, the pandemic. It's not something that we ever thought we would have to deal with. And, every so often somebody will remind me that God only gives only so much of that you can handle. And I'm thinking, I'm pretty pushing maximum here, God. So you may want to slow down for the next couple of years.
You reminded me about the pandemic.
Right.
I forgot to say the pandemic, but God, you're right. It's just so many things. And you also learned, what I've learned, Archie, is even when Gordy was in office and even while Jason's in office, every storm, every rain event throws a different curve. Yep. And I remember Gordy learned about the backflooding problem during a couple of storms. You learned about rain in Lafourche Parish. So you got to be open to learning because it's going to throw you some curveballs.
No doubt. Francine did that for us, right? A little storm that we thought was just going to be a little weak development, dropped 8 inches of rain over the Thibodeau area in about 2 hours, and we had some issues. Yeah. Working through some of those issues. Mr. Councilman Mark Perk had a town hall for some of his constituents on that west side of Thibodeau last week that we worked through, seeing what they see on the ground. Because we're not, as much as we like to be present, right? Our guys are out riding around during those events, running pumps. We can't get to every street and every issue. So meeting with those folks really gives us a sense of what's going on, what went wrong, what we could do better. And then just having good people to learn from. President Dove and I still talk a lot, even though he's up at CPRA now. Yeah. But those first 4 years, President Robbie Miller up in Tangipahoa, these guys who have done this for a couple of terms before I even came around, even though I had some experience in parish government, there's a difference between sitting on that side of the desk and sitting on this side of the desk, right?
Yeah.
So having some good teachers that you can learn from, taking ideas from all the other parish presidents. The 26 of us get together, 4 or 5 times a year and talk about stuff. We've been getting together a lot the last few weeks, looking at the governor's tax proposal and working through the special session. So just having the wherewithal to bounce ideas off of each other is really a good thing these days, and it helps you kind of deal with not only the stress of what we have to put up with, because you can vent to each other because we're all going through the same things, but looking at what they're doing and what worked and what didn't, and how we can do things better.
You brought up the tax proposal. I was going to ask you about that because each area is a little different. But when you break it down, I've been to lunch and I've had people who were in municipalities or fire departments or police departments, and then have people that own large businesses. They might be on different sides of the spectrum on this one. It's a tough one, isn't it?
It is. And we've met with some big business owners, and you went in there thinking they'd want you to go one way, and you get in there and they want to go a completely different direction. But what we really have to look at, while look, we're all going to save money on personal income. The corporations are probably going to save some money on corporate income and corporate franchise. We're going to think like these inventory taxes, and do we opt in? Do we opt out? For us as parish government, we may be able to handle it monetarily, but we got to think about the fire departments and all the other 32 taxing districts we have in Lafourche, and how are we going to make them whole? How are they going to come out ahead? Either do we see new business gain, or do we funnel them some money some other way? So it's going to be interesting. Our group met with Senator Franklin Foyle on Friday, now that the bills are going to the Senate side, to figure out what impacts are going to be there, what structure of the bill is going to be left. There were a lot of developments over the weekend. A lot of things got stripped out. So it's going to be fun over this next week to see what happens before they break for Thanksgiving, and if we get a package even out the legislature by the time this is all over with.
What we'll take a break. When we come back, explain to me the dynamics of sitting in a meeting with somebody that owns a gazillion businesses compared to the fire district right down the street, and how you blend it. I'm sure the audience would like to know, how does he pull that off? That'll be a good one. We'll talk about that when we come back. Don't go away. Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough. All right, we are back with the parish president of Lafourche, Archie Chaisson. We're talking about a lot of things. Talking about the governor's new plan, inventory tax. You said you're meeting with people, and I'm always curious. You're pretty good at this. I've learned that over the years. That would be my worst nightmare as a parish president, to go to a meeting and go, how do you split hairs on this one? But I would almost guess that some people you would think would want to go a certain way for selfish reasons. Big businessmen would go, hold on, we need police, we need fire. And is that the case?
It is, Martin, and it's funny to meet with some of these larger business owners who you think, again, would want to go one way with this. But just because of the way their businesses are set up and how they're incorporated, or whether or not they're incorporated, whether they're an LLC or not, and how that affects not only the business finances, but their personal finances. So it's been the nuances of these deals have been really fun, I guess, to sift through. Because you're right, we still have to provide fire, police, EMS, recreational services. People want their ditches to drain, their roads to be smooth.
Right.
So when you go into these meetings, a lot of times the bigger businesses understand that, and they're willing to pay for it. We just have to figure out how to make it whole for them, right? And when you look at things like these inventory tax credits and how they were offset and other things with it. So when you do away with something like corporate franchise taxes, right, which is a tax a business pays on their assets, has nothing to do with your income or how much you made or lost, but just you're paying a tax on the microphone that we're using here today because it's an asset in your business, right? So when that goes away and you just save this company a few $100,000, and then you talk about things like inventory tax, where you know, a company like Gator Coolers, and I'll talk about Brian McGee because we talk about tax discussions often, right? Yeah. And he hates the inventory tax because at the end of the year, he pays a tax on all the ice chests and coffee mugs and T-shirts and hats he has left over, and it doesn't do him anything, right? So when you talk about that tax and doing away with the credit that he would use to offset his corporate franchise tax, well, now because he's not paying corporate franchise, it makes it a little bit easier for him to pay that inventory tax. Or can we roll it back to a certain extent or start to phase it out? So having those discussions with the business owners are really awesome because it gives you an insight as to what they deal with every day. And it lets you give them an insight as to what we deal with every day in parish government and what that trade-off looks like. So when they write that tax check every January, it's not so bad when they know where their money's going and when somebody's sitting there showing them where that money's going instead of just thinking it goes in, you know, a crooked politician's cookie jar, right?
Yeah. Where are you getting, I don't want to use the word resistance, but where are you hearing more of an outcry? Is it middle income businesses, or where would you think it would be coming from?
I think some of it's the middle income business, some of it's just the average middle income person, especially when you talk about putting a lot of these you know, exemptions back on or pulling away some of the exemptions on what we pay sales tax on. Some of it is somewhat of a no-brainer to me, right? If you're going to go get a tattoo, you probably ought to pay sales tax on it. If you get a haircut, maybe not so much. But you know, when you look at what happened last Friday in the legislature, there were 43 tax exemptions they were trying to pull off to help raise revenue, right? Everything from lawn care to pest control to tattoos to dog grooming, a whole bunch of stuff. Well, of course, the lobbyists all came out and protected their interests. So that list of 43 went to 18. So the revenue went from $500 million to about $100 million a year that they were going to create through this. So it all just kind of fell apart. So now it goes to the Senate side to figure out exactly what's going to happen. And I think that's going to be the heavy lift for us this week is to see what happens.
But you're right. When I first heard about it, I'm going, whoa, that's going to be so controversial. But do you think when they're planning these things in Baton Rouge, they got to know that they're going to get a lot of it chopped off? Yeah. So do they shoot high, hoping they'll get to a certain number? I
think that's always the case. You aim high or you start high and you settle for what you can settle with to generate some revenue to help on the income tax side. And what I think the governor's really trying to do is help the everyday Louisiana and try to save money in their pocketbooks, right? So, again, it's going to be a fun week as they figure out what happens.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. With President-elect Trump getting elected, and not playing politics here, I don't care who voted for who or whatever, that's a personal right. But what does it mean for Lafourche when you're talking about all the boat builders, all the offshore revenues that come in? Or are you planning for a boom? Are we expecting one?
I think we're planning for one. I don't think we see it until maybe 2026. It's going to take him some time to get some of this stuff off the ground when he gets inaugurated in January, right? But I think what it means for us, especially along the Louisiana coast, is he's very pro energy. I think when you look at some of his cabinet selections so far and some of the people he's putting in place, you're going to see a more drill baby drill environment, which is good for us because the thing that we fought so hard with the Biden administration was there was no stability in the market. We're back and forth in court about whether or not we were having lease sales once or twice a year. There was some that, last year and a half, we never had one. So when you look at us from a Go Mesa revenue and the offshore revenue perspective and how we fund projects, that goes away. When you look at what some of the majors are doing, the Chevrons, the Shells, the BPs, and even some of the independents, they're not going to make huge investments not knowing if another lease sale is going to happen, right? And from that lease sale to the point you're drilling is a 5 to 7 to 10 year process, right? Going through geotech, going through engineering, getting contracts lined up, getting ships out there. So I think what you see now is a much more stable environment. You see much more investments made in the Gulf. And even some of the talks have been, again, still talking about offshore wind. Huge constitutional amendment went on the ballot a couple of weeks ago where we're dedicating that money now for anything that happens offshore into the coffers for coastal restoration. I think now that you have a Republican House and a Republican Senate, you see things like the RISE Act, which would generate, money from alternative energy sources offshore into the Go Mesa pot as well, which gives us more money and CPRA more money to do some of these projects. So I think we're going to hit a boom not only from a job and a workforce creation level and see more input in the Gulf. I think we're going to see a revenue stabilization as well and put more money into the Coastal Protection Fund. All
right, we got you to come all the way from Thibodeau, so we're going to hold you for one more segment.
Absolutely.
That's okay?
I got you.
All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with the parish president of Lafourche, Archie Chaisson. Don't go away. Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality. All right, we're with the parish president, Mr. Archie Chaisson of Lafourche Parish, and we appreciate him coming by. You know, we've been talking, but there's so many things. Talked about President-elect Trump coming in and what he's going to do. As far as insurance, as far as the governor of Louisiana, some strong ties to people on his cabinet and to the president. How does that affect Lafourche?
You know, Martin, I think the governor's tied to Governor Kristi Noem from the Dakotas, who got appointed as Department of Homeland Security Secretary, which has jurisdiction over FEMA, is going to be key to this. There's going to be a new FEMA administrator named, I'm sure. I don't think Administrator Criswell sticks around as an Obama appointee. And then there was a guy named David Merstad who was in charge of the National Flood Insurance Program, which was a deputy administrator in the hierarchy of FEMA, just retired. So they're going to be replacing his position as well. So, yeah, I think those three knocks fall in the line. I think Governor Landry has a huge ability to pick up the phone and say, you know, Secretary Noem, President Trump, Administrator whoever, it's time we fix this risk rating 2.0 stuff. And with a stroke of a pen, you could make all of this go away. Yeah. You could make the unaffordable premiums go away. We can go back to the grandfathering until Congress or the administration has a rulemaking process to fix all the issues we've shown that are with this program. So I think there's some hope there. I think there's a lot of hope within the first probably 100, 200 days of that administration that you see something like that happen. And I would have a feeling as much as we've talked to Governor Landry, that's, you know, if he had a talking list of the top 5 things that he's talking to President Trump about, I guarantee you that's probably in the top 5 for him. So if you could blowtorch that weight off of a lot of people, look, it's palatable. You know that. I know it. We see people all the time that they can't afford it. They're back to self-insuring on big play only if you don't have a mortgage. Yep. If you have a mortgage, you're sort of screwed. You are. Yeah. And I have a feeling that, you know, even if we pause the program right now and said, look, you may be hit with a couple of years of the 18% increase, but you're still 3 to 5 years away from that full actuarial rate. Even if we paused it and you went from paying $500 to $900, that $900 is better than the $4,000 you're going to end up at, right? So I think if we pause the program and again, using Governor Landry and the stroke we're going to have with the Speaker of the House, the Majority Leader, and Senator Cassidy and Senator Kennedy, I think we can make some pretty good waves in that. Well, we got Elon Musk. We got a lot of different people. Vivek looking to carve $2 trillion. I look forward to the list. Right. I want to see the list, but the more they carve, the more funds we have to help people, right? Yep. And that's gonna be a good thing, right? More funds you have to help people, the more you carve down the national debt, the more that can drive down interest rates, the more that can make inflation go down. So again, I think that, you know, I think when you look at this Trump administration, it's going to be much different than the first one. It seems to be, you know, choosing, you know, his chief of staff, who was, you know, a political insider, but very soft-spoken when she has to be very hard-spoken, when she needs to be very behind the scenes. It's not the flashiness of the first administration to make a wave, right? He knew what worked right in the first one. He knew what didn't work right. And I think you're going to see now some of the cabinet picks are a little bit out there, right? When you talk about some of the people he brought in, maybe it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us on the ground level yet. Maybe it will to him, and maybe it'll show itself in the future as the nominations hearings take off. But I think this one's going to look a lot different than the first one. I think they have thick skin. I think that's what he's looking for. Yep. Thick skin who could care. He knows he only has 4 years, but he's setting the seed probably for years to come. But it's going to be, it's going to be enlightening. These hearings will be well watched. Yeah, they will. I bet you'll stop and watch a couple. Huh? I probably will. There's a couple of them that I'm really interested in to see how it works out. But let's talk about the senior citizens in Lafourche. I know that you and Christine, the DA in Lafourche, have, and a lot of other people have all been working towards the common goal of making sure
seniors are taken care of.
Yeah, you know, I got to give a lot of credit to Miss Russell. She's not only a fabulous DA, but has a lot of great ideas of how to help the community, and stuff that I wish, hopefully it comes with a little bit more age on me, but she just has these ideas to get everybody in the same room and talk to people and work through some of the issues. And
she's so good at that.
She is, and she started this a couple of years ago with the senior group, and brought in the elected officials from across the parish to really talk about how we can help them. You know, of course, she talks about victims' rights and crimes. The sheriff talks a lot about the scams that we've been seeing a lot in the cryptocurrency realm, and how those seniors are being affected, and not only seniors, just average everyday people. And then we kind of come in and talk about some of the programs we have for our seniors with our community action office, and how we help with commodity distributions, and how we can help with, you know, cable and light and paying some of their bills if they're on a fixed income and having a hard time. But one of the things we really focused on the last couple of meetings have been our Lafourche Breathe Therapy program. So back when the governor was the attorney general, he settled a lot of the opioid cases, and sent a lot of money to the parishes and the sheriffs. And luckily for us, we had Dr. Nicole Bourgeois working for us, and she came to me one day knowing this was coming. We were trying to figure out what we were going to do with the windfall of money, knowing we were going to put some of it in the drug court, help to expand that program with Judge Abel and some of the things that her and Jared and the DA wanted to do. But really talking about how do we really get into the communities and help the mental health of people. And Nicole came to us and said, look, I had this idea a while back of developing this program where, you know, we bring people in, it's a short, you know, kind of 5 to 6 visit window, get them stabilized, and we refer them to a long-term clinician that can really help. But it's getting them stable, right? Getting them off the initial addiction, talking about why they got on the addiction, and then working through that process. And some of it is, a lot of us focus on opioids because that's what the money's geared for. But we also opened it up that if you just have a mental health issue, if you're having a hard time dealing with something, whether it was post-storm, whether it was post-pandemic, whether it was whatever, she allots a certain number of visits a month for those people as well. And she's operating out of Lockport right now in an office. The Galliana complex is going to have a few bed facility where we can see people in that as well. So if you're working through that addiction, if you're working through those mental health issues, visit our website, lafourchegov.org. You can click on the link. It'll bring you to a way to schedule it completely outside of parish government, although we fund it. She has her own office, her own staff, her own interns, and really doing some good things in the community. And not only for seniors, but if you're a senior and you need your grandchild needs help, you can refer them to that program as well, which is why we bring it up to the seniors, because they can they gauge that with their grandchildren and their children a lot more. I'm
excited because you came sit on the desk, no pandemic, no hurricane, no oil spill. Good to see you under semi-normal circumstances.
Just talking about some good stuff, Mark. Thanks for having us. Good to see you,
Archie. All right, the parish president of Lafourche, Archie Chaisson. Always glad to see him here. And Houma will take a break. A lot more right here on Bayou Time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bourke, know your rights.